You don't deserve anything.
It's demoralizing.
But it makes them feel smart and like they're invested.
You go into every sales call desperate.
If I'm going to be broke in the next 30 days, how can I achieve the same thing without spending so much money?
And that's a lot more attractive for people.
100%. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. My name is Alasdair Cunningham, and today, this is the very first episode of our brand new podcast where we're going to be talking about business, entrepreneurship, money, entitlement, problems, and all the things that are going to stop you and help you get into business in 2025 and beyond. As I said, my name's Alasdair Cunningham. I'm a property investor. I'm a six-figure business owner. I've done over 550 property deals. I've made a lot of money from property, but I've made a lot of fucking mistakes. That's the reality. And in this podcast, you're not only going to be getting the good, you're going to be getting the bad, and you're also going to be getting the ugly and hopefully have a bit of a laugh on the way. I'm joined here by my business partner and great friend. I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, my name's Tom Cook, and I've been in business for nearly 6 years now, and I've been working with, probably at this point, over 2,000 people through courses, trainings, coaching, one-to-one, helping people get started in business, helping them grow their business, and obviously have more income, more money, but obviously massively helping them with their own mindset as well, because that is one of the biggest areas that people get stuck. And that's why I'm here with Alasdair. We've got similar missions. We want to help people. We want to serve. And we want to make a difference.
One of the reasons, right? So I've been involved in a few podcasts. So back in the day, I used to have a property podcast with my good friend Russell. We had a big podcast that was doing really, really well. And then I done a little bit of a podcast last year, but things took over. I had a lot of things going on last year, and I had a podcast called 10-Minute Mavericks, and I was doing really well. But I didn't have the time to devote to it. But we made a plan that this year we're going to be dedicated to getting a podcast live and actually running it and doing it. Now, the reason being, right, is we get questions day in, day out from people, and I want to be able to address a lot of these questions and actually genuinely help people. Like, there's a lot of podcasts out there, and some of them are just full of shit. Some of them are actually useful. Some of them are, just funny. And I wanted to have a presence in that marketplace to help and serve people. For those of you who don't know, we are a company based in Leeds, and we help and serve a lot of people in business. Now, it might be a case of you're in a job right now, you want to quit your job, you want to build a business, and you don't really know what to do. So, this podcast's for you. In this podcast, we're coming up to 2025. We want to make sure that you have a good 2025, and we want to talk about, what you can do to get started. We want to talk about what you can do to actually make that leap from going from a 9 to 5 to starting your venture, whatever that may be. It might be that, you just want to start a side hustle to make an extra £500 a month. Or it might be you want to go all in and replace your income and make 5 times your income. We've got students who have replaced their income within a matter of months, earned 5 figures a month within a matter of months, and even earned 7 figures per year within a matter of years. Like, we've got students across the board, and we've helped many, many people. So this podcast's for you if you want to, start or grow a business. You want to talk about, the problems within the business. I'm not just talking about how great everything is. You're not going to get the bullshit Ferrari lifestyle here. You're going to get the reality of what goes wrong in business. I've been in business over 20 years. I've won and lost many, many times. I've probably lost more times than I've won. And I've learned many, many lessons from that. So Tom, 2025, if you're watching this right now, if you're watching this or listening to this right now, however you're tuning in, what would you recommend if I'm in a job, right? If I'm in a job, when's the crucial point that you say, do you know what? I've had enough of this. Like, do you know the FU moment?
Yeah.
Like, when was that? Like, without going into too much detail, like, for you, when was that?
It was because I'd been traveling for 6 months, came back, and whilst I was traveling, I had all this freedom, and then went back to this job where I was just felt trapped, felt restricted, and I realized that that's not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And that was the point where really things started to change. I started to educate myself. I started to learn about business because I realized that was the route to actually creating freedom and doing something more fulfilling. But then it got to a point where I didn't quit straight away. It still took me about another year before I quit. I hadn't fully matched my income yet in business, but I just thought, screw it. I've got to get out.
Do you not think people are too quick to quit their job? They're so desperate to leave their job that, we've seen it so many times where people, they just pull the plug. And I did. Don't get me wrong, I did. I quit my job. I used to work for Stagecoach buses in Bedfordshire, and back in 2004, 2005, something like that, I pulled the plug on my job because I realised that my sort of senior boss at the time, he wasn't the boss of the workshop, but he was above me. He was like 20 years older than me, so he was in his mid-40s where I am now, and he was only earning like an extra 40 or 50 pound a week over what I was earning. And I made the decision that day that this is absolute bullshit. I'm not gonna work underneath buses getting filthy dirty every day for another 20 years to make another 40 pound. And I literally did that day. I gave a week's notice and I left the following Friday. Obviously I honoured my notice period and I worked it out, but I didn't have a plan, right? I had to figure it out because all I knew is there's no way I'm going to be trapped working for buses or working in the bus industry to make 450, 500 pound a week. Now, some people watching this would be happy to make 450 pounds, 500 pounds a week. But this was, think about it right now. Ask yourself this question. If in 20 years from today, you're still making 450 pounds a week, do you see that as a win or a fail? I saw it as a massive fail. So the only thing I can do is change what I can change, and that's what I control. So I made a decision that day to quit my job. I wouldn't advise everyone does that, by the way. I'm a very driven, motivated individual. If you're not driven and motivated, get something done, get something sorted before you quit. Even if it means you've got to work 2 jobs, even if it means you've got to work 2 8-hour shifts. There's 24 hours in a day. You sleep 8 of them. What are you doing for the other 16? Why don't you, have your job 8 hours a day, but then have, build a side hustle in the background, sleep less, work harder, work more. And then when your side hustle starts to, match your job, then quit your job. What about yourself?
Yeah, so because for me, the way I thought about it, I didn't have any kids. I wasn't in a relationship. I didn't have any mortgage. So it was kind of like, okay, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'll probably just move back in with my mum at the time if it failed. But some people don't have that. They have mortgages, they have kids, they have families. So they got to be a bit more sensible about it. But I agree, it is a case of you got to do whatever you can with the time that you have. And if you've only got lunchtimes, evenings, and weekends, then use that time to build up a second income. You can't. Something's got to change and something's got to give. You can't just go to your job all day, come home tired, sit there and do nothing, and expect that a business is going to grow on the side. It just won't. So something's got to give. And yeah, do you know what? In the beginning, it is tough. It is hard.
How many people do we meet and hear? They want to do something in business. They want to start something, right? But they're not prepared to sacrifice. So people come to us all the time and say, Alasdair, but I haven't got the time. You have. Your priorities are wrong, right? Everyone's got the time if you want to make it, because it might only be you've got 2 hours spare a week. Okay, that's 2 hours more than 0. Yep. So do something in them 2 hours to then give you 3 hours. Do something in them 3 hours to give you 4 hours. And within a matter of months, you've gained 7 or 8 hours a week to do what you want to do. And it's about sacrifice. If I go back to early days of my businesses, I was working 70, 80 hours a week. Most people nowadays are working 40 hours a week. Yep. Come on, don't tell me you haven't got time. You haven't got the priorities right, or you don't want it bad enough. When I started my business, I wanted it so bad that it had to work, and there was no other choice. And they say, if you want to take the island, burn the boat.
Yeah,
right?
Go all in.
So go all in. Stop sitting on the fence. Stop teetering around the edges. Actually, choose a strategy, whatever that may be. Maybe you want to do e-commerce. Maybe you want to open a shop. Maybe you want to open a physical premises where you have a workshop or something like that. Go all in, figure it out, and just stick at it until it works. And I am quite fortunate that I've got a couple of people that I speak to are very, 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 very successful. And I was speaking to a gentleman about 6 months ago, and he's one of the few billionaires, okay, genuinely billionaire. And I was lucky enough to have a 45-minute coaching call with him. And he said to me, he goes, Alasdair, he goes, one thing you'll find with everybody who is successful, seriously successful, right? They got successful in one thing. Then they diversified. They didn't do it the other way around. They didn't diversify and be spread so thinly and then go into one. They went one into many. So they started and they dominated one thing. Then they went, they invested in crypto, they invested in stocks, they invested in property, they invested over here. But they didn't do all of that at the beginning. So dominate one thing and stay there until it wins. But also know that if you're doing that, right, and you're going forward and you've chosen your plan for 2025, right, there comes a point where if you've really given it everything and it's not working, and you're doing whatever you can to make it work and it's still not working, there comes a point where you have to cut it off and say, do you know what? I've given it everything. I've tried everything. I've got specialist advice. I've got mentored. I've got trained. But this business just isn't viable. Then you need to make an educated decision to whether you cut that business off or not. Do you agree?
Yeah, there is a time to quit. The challenge is, I think people quit too soon.
Yeah,
and they haven't got the help. They haven't got the education. They haven't actually put a dedicated effort into it, and they haven't given it long enough. And they go, "Oh, it's not working." We'll see this. This will happen in January. As you're listening to this, everyone's going, right, I'm excited. I'm going to do it this year. This is my
New year, new me.
New year, new me. And then by 31st of January, oh, it's not working. I'm not getting results.
By the fucking 5th. Right?
Yeah. And they give up. They give up because it's too soon. I haven't got results. It's not working. And then they quit.
Let me just clarify, right? I might have just, some of you might be thinking I just contradicted myself. I didn't. What I'm saying is, look, go all in, but then know when you've gone all in and it's just you're flogging a dead horse, then be brave enough to say, look, I've given it 100%. Okay, this business model is not 100% accurate. So number one, you either pivot that business model or you do something completely different and come away from that industry, for instance. I've tried many things in my time, like many, right? I can tell you categorically now, I've created at least six-figure businesses and at least 2 7-figure businesses, plus built a multi-million-pound property portfolio. But I've got to that stage by failing. And sometimes you have to accept that failure is part of the journey. And if you're not prepared to fail, like Tony Robbins says this, he says, if you require certainty and if you require gratification from other people, then you'll never, ever be successful. So you have to be mindful that you're your own sort of cheerleader, right? And when you're going forward, you have to commit all the way. And then when it's going wrong, look in. Don't look out. Yeah. Like most people are too quick to look out and blame the economy or this training program I did is shit or, I got scammed. How many of you have heard other people blame other people for their problems? Yeah. Successful people look in and they say, look, the reason why my business is not creating sales is because I suck at selling. The reason why I've not got any leads is because my marketing department is shit, right? Look in, stop looking out, right? And stop pushing the blame out, start blaming yourself. And I can tell you now, when I hit success was when I started being accountable. I started holding myself to a high level of account. And I started honoring what I said I was going to do and honoring my commitments. And I started looking at me before I looked at other people.
Yeah. And then on that note, so it's about in 2025, you need to raise your standards. And I think mediocre is just becoming the acceptable norm.
So last century.
Yeah, what? Mediocre. Yeah. And it's just like, it's okay just to be shit and not give your best. And people just do the bare minimum
Why
now,
is
and
that?
That's acceptable.
Why have people normalized mediocre?
Because...
Why have they normalized normal? Why has people normalized accepting bullshit? I don't understand.
Because I think everything's become so easy.
But why have we accepted being late to a meeting is normal?
Yeah.
It's fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. Billionaires aren't late to meetings. Broke people are always late to meetings. Doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah.
Why have we normalized it? I've not, but you've not. But why is half the world normalized being late? Why is half the world normalized lack? Why is half the world normalized, just getting by?
I think it's just been passed down. We see other people doing it and we go, oh, that's okay. Oh yeah, I can do that then. But nobody calls anybody else out. Nobody calls anybody else out and says, look, come on, let's show up on time. Like, let's start this on time, or whatever it is. And it's okay. It's almost like people are given that subconscious permission to underperform. Happy days. Don't worry about it.
Do you think it's like the giving prizes to finishing second? Like, when you go to the school competition, it's like, hey, everyone's a winner. Everyone gets a medal.
You participated. Well done.
Participation medal. No, fuck that. Like, I've done a lot of motorsport in my time, right? I've done a lot of kart racing and things like that. And I used to win a lot of races back in 2004, 2005. Like, I was club champion a couple of times. I used to win lots of races. Do you know what I used to feel when I used to come second? First loser. Coming second to me was being first loser. Right? If I come second, I was like, well, what was the point in even being here? Now, some of you might think, well, you're being a little entitled little brat. I'm not. I'm just like, do this to win. I'm not doing this to come second. Why do we normalize just accepting that, not winning is acceptable? It's not.
Yeah. But also, like, when you actually start upping those standards, you start showing up on time, you start doing all those things, you play to win, you want to create that success. Like, take a fine dining restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's classy, everything's set out nice, it's clean, it's polished. They charge higher prices. So actually, when you start increasing your standards, you have better disciplines, better habits, money will naturally start flowing.
All right. So 2025, right? If you're watching this and you want to quit your job, what should they do in order to prepare themselves for quitting their job to start their venture or to go full all into their venture, whatever that venture may be?
You already said it. Do one thing, not 13 things or 15 things, thinking that the more things you do, you'll be successful. That's not the case. Just do one thing,
and get good.
Do it well. Yeah, get good at it. Get good at it. And if you're sucking at it, that's all right. Just get better at it.
Yeah, there's no problem sucking at things. There's no problem sucking at marketing. But hey, listen, I've not always been good at sales. I've made a lot of mistakes in sales. Like I run a webinar, like a webinar training session, right? But I used to suck at doing webinars. I do a lot of public speaking. I used to suck at doing public speaking. I used to get on stage and be nervous. Now, put me in front of 1,500 people and I don't even care. I don't even prepare. I know what I'm going to speak about, right? It's just, as you do more, you get better at everything and things like that. So, all right, from a financial aspect, okay, here's the key question. What should one watching this do to make sure that they're financially, secure? If they were in a 9-to-5 job, right, they've got that security of a 9-to-5 income. If you're working a 9-to-5, you're getting paid at the end of each month, 99%, unless the company goes bankrupt, right? If you're in a business, that's uncertain, okay? There's been many times where I've not been able to pay myself in my businesses and things like that. So 9-to-5, you've got security. You're about to step out of that security. And we've seen many times when students who have got really good businesses, they've stepped out of that 9-to-5 security, but then they've struggled because they've got 3 things they've got to focus on. Number 1, accountability. When you've got a job, you've got to be there at 9, you leave at 5. You've got somebody holding you accountable. The second thing is managing your diary. Suddenly you're in full control of your diary. You're in full control of your daily activity. And thirdly is managing the money. Right? Because, if you're starting a venture, it's unlikely you're going to be able to take any income from that for at least 6 months. So what would you advise people watching that are in 9-to-5, watching right now, that they've got a great idea for a business, maybe they've started that business, but they want to take the plunge and go full all in? What would you advise from a financial aspect that they should perhaps do to protect themselves?
Stop overspending. That was my biggest mistake. Like first couple of years, I started making some money. And in my head, I was like, oh my God, I've made it. This is it. Oh my God, I'm going to be so successful. And I remember I took my mum and sister out to a really nice restaurant in London. It was a lot of money, but in my head, I thought I'd made it and I was now deserving of doing this stuff.
Deserving that fucking word. I deserve it. Oh, mate,
that set me back. We had a nice time with them, but so I'm grateful that at the time with them.
Let's just talk about that deserving word, right? We get that a lot. People say, well, I deserve it. I've been working hard. You don't deserve anything, right? Get over yourself, right? You don't deserve it until I would say, until you're comfortably making enough money where you've got no worries for the next 6 months, you don't deserve that new car, you don't deserve that holiday, you don't deserve the new clothes. And all too often we see people start a business, they go out and they make some money, and then they blow it. They blow it up the wall. Suddenly they're wearing nice new suits, they've got nice new clothes. Suddenly the washing machine's broken and it has to be replaced. The car, the noise that they've put up with for the last 6 months, now is a brand new BMW. It doesn't make sense. It's such a broke way to do things. And you can always tell new money because they're driving around in fancy stuff and they're broke. They've got nothing in the bank balance, but they look rich. So you just be mindful of that. Like I know billionaires and they don't pretend. You don't see them wearing Versace and Gucci and all that crap. You don't see it, right? You only see that from broke people trying to look rich. Yeah, and it's because you're only going to shoot yourself in the foot. And you've got to get out of that mindset and of this idea that you're rich when you're not. And I think you have to be a bit humble about it. Humble, yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah. And
I agree with that.
Like you said, we see it all the time. I've done it myself, just overspending at the wrong time. And it's demoralizing because then you're on the back foot again. You're struggling for money, and you've got to build that back up again. The best thing that you can do is start just accumulating cash, accumulating money, invest it in the right things, so that you can grow your business. Because then business is about staying in the game for as long as you can.
Yeah, I agree with that. Staying in the game until you're successful. The thing is, right, you mentioned investing there, right? And a lot of people think, okay, I've got money, I'm going to invest. And suddenly they're buying all these crypto coins, these meme coins. And I've had so many clients that have made 10 grand or 20 grand, and they might have 5 grand in the bank. And suddenly they're blowing up the wall on these crypto coins they know nothing about, but it makes them feel smart and like they're investing. Listen, I personally would be very careful with what you invest in. I'm all for investing, guys. I'm all for investing. I've got lots of investments, right? But listen, if you can't afford to pay your bills, stop investing, right? If you can't afford to pay your rent, let's get comfortable financially before you start throwing 10 grand into crypto coins. Let's get comfortable, making sure you're looking after your minimal commitments, making sure you're looking after your family, your partner, your kids, whatever, before you start sort of blowing that money into investments that might come good, okay? So I would say, listen, if you're going to start investing in crypto or property or anything like that, you need to have a good 3 or 4 months income set aside so that, if you make no money for the next 3 or 4 months, you're good. Right? And I want you to get into this habit, run your business like you're going to be broke in the next 30 days. Like really, run your business like you are going to be broke and homeless in the next 30 days. Because when you do, you start questioning everything. I'll give you a prime example. And it's not his fault. He's new. Okay, so we've got a videographer, right? Lovely guy. He's all the way from Jersey, by the way. His name's James. It's James from Jersey, right? So we've got this podcast equipment here, okay? Now, I'm like, James, hey, go and get all the podcast equipment and give me a list of what you need. So I get this big old list and it's like 3.5 grand.
Argos catalogue.
Yeah, it was like, he's been given a shopping list. Go, right? It's my money he's spending, not his money, all right? I then kind of said to him, if it was your money, what would you buy? And guess what? All he bought was 2 mics and a stand. And then we used the existing music desk that we've got to make the sound good. Right? But yet, when it was my money, he wanted a mixing desk. He wanted a complete standalone. He wanted 4, microphones. He wanted 4 headsets. 3.5 grand's worth. We bought all this equipment for less than £400. My money, £400. His money, £400. My money, 3.5 grand. Makes sense. So it's very easy to spend money, but you got to ask yourself, listen, if I'm going to be broke in the next 30 days, how can I achieve the same thing without spending so much money? Make sense?
Yeah. And when you've got, we do love you, James. When you've got no money in the bank account because you've been spending, you go into every sales call desperate because you go, I've got to make this money. Oh my God, I've got to pay my bills. I've got to put food on the table. So you get really, really desperate and people smell BS from a mile away. Yeah, they can smell when you're being desperate. They can smell when you're more interested in the money than actually helping them.
Desperation stinks, doesn't it?
If you've got that money in the bank account, you've got your bills taken care of, all of that, you can go into those calls more relaxed, more certainty, and that's a lot more attractive for people.
100%. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. We've just been talking about 2025, what you can do to get started. I hope you found it useful. We're going to be coming to you every single week. Now, you can listen to us on any of the podcast providers, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprouts, all these sort of places. You can also watch us on YouTube, where you can see the video. So make sure you're liking, following, and sharing. And listen, if you want us to cover any topic that you're interested in specifically, just email team@valiant-education.com. Let us know what you want to talk about. And if you want to be featured on the podcast, also, send me a proposal. Why? Why should we let you on here? What are you going to talk about and how are you going to help our listeners? My name's Alasdair Cunningham. I will see you again next week. I'm out. Tom?
Thank you, guys. Yeah, see you next week. We've got more value for you. And again, if you got those comments or you got those questions, message us. Let us know.
All right, peace. See you later.